My fiancée said she wanted a small engagement dinner. So why were there 47 people and not a single one from my side of the family? I didn't say a word. I just walked out. 2 hours later, so did half the guests. Hi, my name's Ethan. I'm 30, and up until a few weeks ago, I was engaged to the woman I thought I was going to marry. Her name is Vanessa, 28, smart, driven, charming in that way that makes other people instantly like her. The kind of woman who could get away with murder and make the jury apologize for wasting her time. And I say that because what she did to me felt pretty close. But I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I just saw what I needed to see. And I walked out. That's where I want to begin, the dinner. The moment everything flipped. Vanessa and I had been dating for almost 4 years. I proposed after 3.5, and even that was later than most people expected. But I wanted to do it right. I'd been saving for a ring, planning the moment, rehearsing my speech like an idiot in the mirror. I wanted to be sure that when I asked her to be my wife, I could give her everything she deserved. I thought she appreciated that. And maybe she did, at least on the surface. About a week after the proposal, Vanessa brought up the idea of having an engagement dinner. Nothing huge, her words, not mine. Let's just keep it super chill, she said. Like 20 people tops. Just close friends and family. I want something intimate, something that feels real. You know, I said that sounded perfect. I gave her a list of my parents, my brother and his wife, a few of my longtime friends, and my 2 closest coworkers who'd basically been like brothers to me. She nodded, smiled, and said she'd handle the invites and reservations. I trusted her with it. She was the planner between us. I'm more the introverted type. I work in IT, mostly remote, not a big talker unless you really get to know me. She's the extrovert. She knows how to fill a room. I just didn't know she'd fill the room with everyone except my people. The dinner was scheduled for a Friday evening at this trendy Mediterranean restaurant downtown. Vanessa picked the place, upscale, candlelit, full of white brick walls and potted olive trees like it was trying to cosplay a Greek vacation. When I arrived, I thought I was early. There were already a dozen people seated, and a few more standing near the bar with glasses of wine. All dressed up, all chatting, smiling, like they'd known each other forever. I didn't recognize a single face. I looked around again. Okay, maybe I wasn't early. I made my way inside. Vanessa spotted me and waved, her smile a little too wide. She was in this silky champagne-colored dress that looked like it belonged at a gala, not a small, intimate dinner. Ethan, you made it, she said, like I was a late guest at her event. I glanced at the group behind her. There were already more than 20 people seated, at least double that were mingling or standing around. Hey, I said quietly, leaning in. Are we hosting something else here too? She tilted her head. What do you mean? I thought this was just family and close friends. She laughed, lightly touching my chest. It is. These are my people. You know, my aunt from Phoenix, my college roommates, some coworkers you've met. Yeah, I said slowly, I've met some. But where's my mom? My dad? My brother? Her face froze just a second too long. Then she turned to grab 2 glasses of champagne off a tray. Let's just get through tonight, okay? She said, her voice suddenly tight. Don't make this weird. That sentence hit me sideways. Don't make this weird. I stepped away from her and took out my phone. Maybe I missed something. Maybe my mom had gotten the address wrong. Or the time. Or maybe something happened and they'd called. Except I didn't have a single missed call. Or text. No one from my side had even mentioned the dinner that day. My dad, usually punctual to a fault, hadn't called to say he was on the way. My brother, who loves any excuse to drink free wine, hadn't posted a single photo or meme or joke like he usually does when he's dressed up. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring. Hey, honey, she said, cheerful and warm. Everything okay? Hey, Mom. Did you guys get the invite for the engagement dinner? There was a pause. What dinner? That was when the room started spinning a little. I walked toward the restroom in the back of the restaurant. But I didn't stop there. I went out the rear exit, where the delivery trucks unload produce in the morning, and just kept walking. I left Vanessa in that restaurant, surrounded by 47 people who didn't know me and clearly didn't care to. I didn't text. I didn't explain. I walked 2 blocks to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at the steering wheel for a long time. Then I drove home. It was 2 hours before she noticed I was gone. I know because she called me 13 times in a row starting at 10:14 p.m. The first voicemail was annoyed. Where are you? You just left? You're embarrassing me, Ethan. The last one was angry. Everyone's asking where you are. You ruined this night. I can't believe how selfish you're being. I didn't answer a single one. I wasn't ready. I was too busy trying to understand how the woman I was about to marry had managed to erase half my life from the most important night of our relationship so far. I'd love to say I felt strong, or smart, or justified. But mostly, I just felt like a guest at my own engagement. And that is a feeling I don't think I'll ever forget. Vanessa didn't come home that night. I heard the front door open around 7:30 the next morning. I was already awake, sitting on the couch in sweats, still wearing the same blank expression I'd had since I left the restaurant. She walked in like she'd just finished a long shift, not like she'd ghosted me at our own engagement dinner. She set her heels down by the door and looked at me like I was the one who owed her an explanation. "So, you're just going to disappear? Really, Ethan?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to see what she'd say when there was no one to perform for. She kept going. She said I had embarrassed her in front of her entire family, that I'd made a scene by leaving, that I'd blindsided her by not saying anything in the moment. Then she pivoted, told me I was too sensitive, and that if I had a problem with the guest list, I should have spoken up earlier. It was like she hadn't processed the fact that none of my family had even been invited. I asked her directly, "Did you actually reach out to my parents?" She didn't answer at first. Then she said, "They never really made me feel welcome. Not no, not yes. Just that." I asked her again, more firmly this time, "Did you invite them or not?" That's when she admitted it. She never sent the invites. She thought it would be easier without the tension. She didn't think they'd mesh well with her side. She said the dinner wasn't the wedding, so she had the right to decide who she was comfortable celebrating with. Her tone the whole time was disturbingly calm, like she thought she was being reasonable. When I told her I'd called my mom from the restaurant, she flinched for the first time, realized I already knew the truth. Then she got defensive, told me it was unfair to make this a big deal, said I could throw a dinner for my side if I really wanted to. Separate, like we were planning two different lives. That's when it hit me. She didn't forget my family. She erased them on purpose. And that night, I got the full picture. My brother called me around midnight. He was confused, quiet, almost guilty sounding. He said Vanessa had texted him a few weeks ago, but not to invite him. She asked him not to bring my parents around too much, saying they were too intense and could trigger Ethan's anxiety. My brother said he didn't want to make things worse, so he stayed out of it. My coworker Luke told me a similar story the next day. Vanessa told him the dinner was family only and that she'd let him know about the next celebration. She'd made it sound like it was an exclusive little thing, just for relatives. And he believed her. Why wouldn't he? That's when the picture stopped being blurry. She'd filtered my life, selected the parts she liked, cut the ones she didn't, and then stitched it all together into some curated performance for her friends and relatives. One where I was the accessory, the stable foundation under her sparkle. I didn't explode. I didn't confront her in a big, dramatic monologue. Instead, I let her think I was letting it go. For a few days, I said nothing. I acted cold but civil, distant but polite. She seemed to think I was sulking, that I'd eventually apologize for walking out. Meanwhile, I started paying attention. She left her laptop open one morning before work. Normally, I wouldn't snoop. But after what happened, I couldn't ignore the pit in my stomach. Something was still off. So I checked the browser tabs. Her Gmail was still open. There was an email thread with her cousin, 14 messages long. They'd been talking about the dinner for weeks. Her cousin said things like, "It's better without his family there. It keeps the focus on you." And Vanessa agreed. Called it a branding moment. A branding moment. I wasn't a fiancé. I was part of her marketing strategy. Then came the message that really stuck. Her cousin joked about how she used to date men with money, and Vanessa replied, "Trust me, I'm playing the long game. Stability sparks. For now." That phrase felt like someone driving a nail straight into my chest. For now. So I sent the email thread to myself. Saved every screenshot, every quote, and I started making my own plans. She still thought I was sulking. Still thought she could fix things with some flowers and a few charming apologies. But I was done playing the role. She wanted a curated version of my life. Then I'd give her a performance she wouldn't forget. I started writing a new guest list, and it was going to include one name she never expected to see again. But I'll get to that in update 3. Because that's when I found out the most explosive part of all, that the person Vanessa said she cut out of her life years ago had never really gone away. And that her small dinner wasn't the first time she had erased me from the picture. It was just the first time I saw it. After reading those emails between Vanessa and her cousin, I didn't feel angry. I felt cold. There's a difference. Anger is loud. It burns out. But this was like something quiet snapping inside me, folding in on itself. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to wait. Because now, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. Vanessa had always been the charming one. People fell for her in seconds. She had this ability to read a room like a magician, knew what to say, how to act, how to get people on her side. At first, I thought that meant she was emotionally intelligent. Later, I realized it was something else entirely. She wasn't reading the room to connect. She was reading it to control. Every interaction was calculated. How she dressed, who she invited, which stories she told. She didn't accidentally forget to invite my family to the engagement dinner. She knew exactly what she was doing. I still hadn't confronted her. She thought we were moving past it, like it was a bump in the road, not a red flag the size of a billboard. But things got worse. A week after the dinner, we were sitting on the couch, watching some dating reality show she liked. Vanessa had her phone on her lap. She got a notification, and I caught a glimpse of the name. Ty. I don't know what it was, instinct, or just luck, but that name froze me. Because Ty was the ex. The one she told me was a mistake, toxic, completely cut off. The one she said she blocked years ago. She'd always brushed him off when his name came up, called him childish, broke, unstable. I never pressed, because everyone has a past. But now I was wondering if that past had ever really ended. Later that night, when she went to shower, I took a gamble. Her phone was still on the kitchen counter. I opened it. Yes, I know how that sounds. But after the guest list, the email thread, the lies to my family, there were no more boundaries to protect. Ty's name wasn't just one message. It was a thread, months long. They hadn't talked every day, but enough to show a pattern. They'd reconnected about 6 months ago, casually at first, just old memories, inside jokes. Then it turned into, "You were the only one who really understood me," type messages. The last 2 weeks, the tone had changed. Ty had just moved back to our city. She offered to grab coffee, said it was for closure. He sent her a photo of the coffee shop. She sent back a selfie with a wink emoji. But the message that really locked it in for me came 3 days before our engagement dinner. "Can't believe you're actually going through with it," Ty wrote. "Neither can I," she replied. "Let's see how long it lasts." That was all I needed. Vanessa didn't know I knew, and I wasn't going to tell her. Not yet. I started planning a dinner of my own. Same idea, friends, family, celebration. But with a twist. I invited my parents, my brother, my coworkers, even some extended family I hadn't seen in a while. I explained everything to them, and they all showed up with zero hesitation. They'd been waiting for a chance to support me. I just hadn't given them one. But there was one more person I needed at that table. Ty. This wasn't about revenge. Not exactly. I wasn't going to fight him. I wasn't even going to accuse him of anything. But I wanted Vanessa to feel the same blindsided confusion I'd felt that night in the restaurant, when I looked around and realized I didn't belong at my own celebration. So I reached out. Ty didn't reply right away. But 2 days later, he did. He said, "Why would I come?" I told him, "Because she's still playing both of us. And I think you already know that." He agreed to show up, just to talk. No drama. No yelling. He said he was curious how this would play out. Honestly, so was I. I reserved a private room at a quiet Italian place, nothing flashy. Told Vanessa I was having dinner with some family and coworkers. She didn't think much of it. She said she'd swing by if she had time. Perfect. I didn't need her there at the start. I needed her to walk in late, just like I had at her dinner. Because the guest list was going to tell the story this time. And when she saw who was sitting at that table, smiling, relaxed, comfortable, she was going to realize. This was what real inclusion looked like. Not curated. Not filtered. Not her version of the truth. And most importantly, not a single seat was for show. The night of the dinner felt different. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't excited. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was focused. The restaurant was cozy. Warm lighting, wood-paneled walls, long tables covered in white linen. Nothing extravagant, just real. My people were already seated when I arrived. My mom gave me a hug that lasted a beat longer than usual. My brother clapped me on the shoulder and told me it was good to see me around actual humans again. My coworkers brought a bottle of wine with a sticky note that said Team Ethan on it. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a supporting character in someone else's story. I felt like myself again. At 7:15, I got a text from Vanessa. Still at the office. Might stop by if I can. Save me a seat. I replied, already did. She didn't ask who else would be there. She didn't want to know. I'd learned something about Vanessa over the past few weeks. She didn't ask questions she didn't want answers to. And she assumed that because she was the loudest voice in the room, everyone else would just follow her lead. But not tonight. Ty showed up 10 minutes later. He wore a button-down shirt and carried himself like someone walking into a job interview he didn't need. When we shook hands, he looked me right in the eye. "Just to be clear," he said, "I didn't come here for her." I nodded. Me neither. We sat at opposite ends of the table. My parents didn't know who he was. Neither did most of the guests. But it didn't matter. I wasn't doing this for applause. I was doing this for clarity. At exactly 8:02, Vanessa walked in. Hair curled, lipstick fresh, dressed like she was about to make an entrance at a gala. She didn't even pause at the doorway, just walked in smiling, waving, expecting the room to revolve around her. Then her eyes scanned the table. She saw my family. She saw my friends. And then, as she saw him, Ty didn't say a word, just raised his glass slightly in her direction and went back to his conversation with my coworker. Vanessa's smile twitched, then dropped completely. She stood frozen for maybe 5 seconds. then slowly walked to my side of the table. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I stood up, calmly, and followed her outside. We stood near the sidewalk. Cold air. City noise. Her eyes were wide now, less angry and more scrambling, like she was trying to solve a puzzle that used to be easy. "What is he doing here?" she hissed. "I invited him," I said. "Why?" Her voice cracked a little. "Because he was already at our engagement dinner," I said. "Just not physically." She blinked. "I read the messages, Vanessa. I saw everything. The coffee shop. The texts. The part where you said you didn't think this was going to last." For a second, she didn't say anything. Then she did what Vanessa always did when she was backed into a corner. She went on offense. "You invaded my privacy," she snapped. "You had no right to go through my phone." I didn't flinch. "You had no right to use me as a placeholder." That shut her up. She looked around, like the answers might be written on the brick walls or the sidewalk or the passing cars. Then she tried to soften her tone. "I was confused, Ethan. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough to hide it," I said. "It meant enough to lie to my face. To exclude my family. To build a celebration around yourself and leave me outside." Her hands were shaking now. I could see it. She wasn't used to me being direct. "You blindsided me," she said quietly. I nodded. "Now we're even." She didn't go back inside. She walked away. Not a dramatic exit. Not tears. Just turned and left like someone who didn't recognize the room anymore. I went back in. Everyone else was still talking, laughing, eating dessert. Ty gave me a small nod before leaving not long after. The rest of us stayed. There was no toast. No staged moment. Just conversation and warmth and a strange sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. It's a strange thing, seeing someone's true face after so long. Not the face they show your parents. Not the one they wear at brunch or parties or weddings. The real one. The one that flinches when they realize you saw through them. 3 days after the dinner, Vanessa knocked on my door. No text. No warning. Just a knock like nothing had happened. I'd been expecting it, honestly. I knew she wasn't going to let things go without trying to twist them into her favor. She couldn't help herself. She lived for control, even if it meant rewriting reality. I opened the door. She looked exactly how I thought she would. Flawless makeup, hair done just enough to look effortless, oversized sweater to play this soft, vulnerable card. I'd seen the look before. It was the one she used when she needed to steer someone's emotions. I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let her in. She walked to the middle of the living room and turned to face me with that expression, part sorrow, part hope, part manipulation. "Ethan," she said gently, "I don't want to lose you." I didn't respond. She took a breath and launched into what I assumed was a rehearsed monologue. She said she messed up, that she never meant to hurt me, that she'd been scared about how fast everything was moving. She said the texts to Ty were a mistake, that he'd reached out, and she didn't want to be rude. That the engagement dinner wasn't meant to exclude, it was just her way of handling stress. "I'm not perfect," she said, "but I love you, and I want us to move forward." It was all very polished, very composed, and very fake. Here's the thing. People who mess up usually show it. They stammer. They break down. They look you in the eye and tell the truth, even if it makes them look awful. Vanessa looked like someone trying to keep their image intact. I asked her one question. "Did you ever mean to marry me?" She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. She started crying then. Not sobbing, just the kind of tearful silence that's designed to provoke sympathy. She sat down on the couch and wiped her eyes delicately, like she was being filmed. "I got scared," she said. "Okay, you're stable. You're a good man. I wasn't used to that. I thought maybe I'd miss out on something if I settled too fast." Settled. That word landed hard. "Is that what I was to you?" I asked. "Settling." She looked up, wide-eyed, like she'd just realized what she'd said out loud. I didn't mean it like that. But she had. She meant every word. Vanessa didn't say things by accident. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up a small envelope, and handed it to her. Inside were 2 things. The receipt for the ring. A list of vendors I had already contacted to cancel wedding reservations. She looked at them slowly, like her brain couldn't quite process what she was holding. "This isn't a breakup," I said calmly. "This is me stepping out of the version of reality you've been curating." "You can't be serious," she whispered. "Ethan, this is our life. We've built so much." "No," I said. "I built something. You built an exit plan." She stood up, clutching the envelope, now visibly shaking. Not from sadness. From loss of control. "You're making a mistake," she said. "You're throwing away something good." "I'm finally keeping something good," I told her. "Myself." She stormed out. No final hug. No "I'll change." Just footsteps and a door slam. For someone who lived for performance, that was her realest moment. A few hours later, I got a call from her cousin. Voicemail only. She accused me of humiliating Vanessa, of setting her up at the dinner. Said I should have handled things like a man and not involve Ty. I didn't respond. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Later that week, my mom called to check on me. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I think I am," I said. And it was true. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't confused. I wasn't trying to make sense of someone else's version of my life. I was just clear. After Vanessa left my apartment that day, she went quiet. No calls, no texts, just silence. For someone who always needed to control the narrative, that was her tell. When Vanessa didn't know how to spin something in her favor, she retreated. Not out of shame, but calculation. She was waiting to see how much damage control she'd have to do. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. A week passed. Then two. Friends started reaching out, some confused, others not surprised at all. One of her old college friends messaged me to say, "She's telling people you had a breakdown and walked out because you felt overshadowed." Another said Vanessa was framing me as too emotional and unstable, as if my reaction to being excluded, lied to, and cheated on was the problem. I didn't defend myself. I didn't post receipts. I just lived my life. Because I knew something she didn't. People remember the quiet exits. And then came the turn. It started small, whispers in her friend group. Ty told one person the truth. That person told another. And suddenly, her version of the story started falling apart. Apparently, she didn't know Ty had screenshots too. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she tried to host a relaunched dinner. You know, fresh energy, fresh start, her words. Only a third of the invited guests showed up. By the third week, she'd been quietly let go from the startup where she worked. Word was, one of the senior investors heard about what she did at the engagement dinner. Didn't like what it said about her judgment. She went from being the woman who curated her life like a magazine spread to someone dodging questions she didn't have clean answers for. Meanwhile, I started over. Slowly, quietly. I reconnected with people I'd let drift. Took a few solo trips. Switched departments at work. Focused on things I'd pushed aside. Nothing drastic. Just real. For me. I didn't wear what happened like a badge. I didn't bring it up in every conversation. But I didn't hide it either. When people asked, I told them the truth. I was engaged to someone who loved the idea of me, but not the reality. And when the mask slipped, I let it fall. A few months later, I ran into her. Random. Grocery store. Aisle 6. She was dressed down, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked tired, like someone still recovering from a storm she couldn't explain. We made eye contact. She gave me a small nod. I nodded back. Neither of us said a word. Because really, what was left to say? She knew I knew. And I knew she knew it didn't matter how she told the story. The truth had already done the talking. Sometimes, the best closure isn't a confrontation. It's watching someone finally realize they lost the one person who didn't need the spotlight to stand tall. And realizing that person isn't looking back. Not to gloat. Not to chase. Just to walk forward. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.